class! Today, we are going to learn about the monohybrid patterns of inheritance. It is easy for us to understand this. Just remember the prefix mono means one. It is a pattern of inheritance from two parents differ in one specific characteristics. For example, the height of the plant. A cross between tall pea plant and a dwarf pea plant, considering only the height of the parent, is a monohybrid cross. What do you call the systematic tool that can be used in predicting the outcome of a given cross? Yes, you're right. It's the Punnett square. This feature is Reginald Punnett. He became interested in experimental process during his stay in Cambridge. He began scientific collaboration with William Bateson, who was doing a Mendelian experimentation on plants and animals. They both published the first account of gene linkage on sweet peas, and later on, they developed the Punnett square. For us to understand better, let's try to look on the sample problem.
Let's read the sample problem. In Mendel's experiment, what was the resulting offsprings when he crossed purebred tall pea plants and purebred dwarf pea plants? Is there any chance to produce dwarf pea plants from this cross?
Here are the steps in solving the problem. Step number 1. Assign symbol for each allele. In our given problem, we use the trait of the height of the plant. To symbolize it, we will use letters. Remember, we use uppercase letter or capital letter for dominant allele and lowercase letter or small letter for recessive allele. In our example, we use capital letter T for tall and small letter t for dwarf. Step number 2. Determine the genotypes of each parent. As we all know, there are two parents in the given problem. We have purebred tall and purebred dwarf. It is very important to read the problem carefully. Look for the clues to identify if the parent is homozygous or heterozygous. Remember, when we say homozygous, it is identical. And when we say heterozygous, there are two different alleles. Step number 3. Determine the kinds of gametes produced by each parent. It is important to recall the first principle of Mendel, the principle of segregation.
For example, purebred tall parent will segregated into tall and tall. On the other way around, the purebred dwarf parent will be segregated into dwarf and dwarf.
Step number 4. It's time to do the Punnett square. How do you do that? It's very simple.
Just write the genotypes of the first parent on top and the genotypes of the second parent in the left side. Make a Punnett square by drawing grids where you are going to write the possible genotypes of the resulting offsprings. You have to fill in each grid with two alleles, one from the parent along the top and one from the parent along the side. The letters in the middle show you all the possible combinations of alleles that can happen when these gametes meet during fertilization. For example, one on top is tall and the other one is dwarf. When they combined, tall and dwarf will result to capital T and small letter t, which means this is a heterozygous. Same thing you will do with the others.
Next, determine the phenotype of each offsprings. Remember to obey the principles of dominance.
Just like in our example, tall is dominant, dwarf is recessive. When they combine, there will be tall and there will be dwarf. But this will be heterozygous, meaning to say, the phenotype of the offsprings will be tall.
Step number 5. Identify the genotypic and phenotypic ratio. Always remember, when we say genotype, it is the genetic makeup of an organism. And when we say phenotype, it is the physical appearance.
When we say genotypic ratio, you have to consider all the possible genotypes of the offsprings and count its presence in the Punnett square. In this case, we have heterozygous tall, heterozygous tall, heterozygous tall, and heterozygous tall, meaning all our genotypes are heterozygous tall, with capital letter T and small letter t, meaning to say 4:0, means 100% heterozygous tall. Our phenotypic ratio, we have 4 tall and 0 dwarf, meaning we have all tall or 100% tall.
And for our last step, give the specific answer to the given question from the problem.
In our example, the question is there any chance to produce dwarf pea plant from this cross? The answer would be, there is no chance to have dwarf pea plants from the cross because all the offsprings are heterozygous.
Very easy, right? Just follow the steps given to you.
Let's recall. Number 1. Assign symbol for each allele. Number 2. Determine the genotypes of each parent. Number 3. Determine the kind of gametes produced by each parent. Number 4. Do the Punnett square. Number 5. Identify the genotypic and phenotypic ratios. And number 6. Give the specific answer to a given question from the problem.
Now, you can solve the monohybrid patterns of inheritance.